Welcome to episode 457 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing filmmakers Jamison LoCascio and Adam Ambrosio. They were on the podcast in episode 374, where they talked about their start and two of their earlier feature films called Sunset and No Fear. But this week they're back on to talk about their new horror feature film called How Dark They Pray, which is a horror anthology series where they have put several shorts together as a feature film. It's another great story from two guys who are living far from Hollywood, but are still out there getting projects produced. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 457. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing filmmakers Jamison LoCascio and Adam Ambrosio. Here is the interview. Welcome back, James and Adam, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So you guys have been on the podcast before in episodes number 234, where we talk about your film Sunset, and then also episode 375, where we talked about your feature film No Fear. So I will link to those in the show notes, and I encourage listeners to go back and check out those episodes, as that's a lot of your origin story, kind of how you got started in the business. So first question, just as I'm researching this interview, kind of getting ready for it, I noticed on IMDb, you guys continue to churn out short films, and between Sunset and No Fear, I think there was 9 or 10 shorts. Between No Fear and your latest feature film, which we're going to talk about in a second, How Dark They Pray, you did a couple more short films. Why do you keep doing these short films, and what do you guys continue to get out of these short films as you're doing them?
That's a good question. Well, part of our philosophy, right, with Film Valor and our company in general, was to kind of come at it from the perspective of, let's stay creative, let's keep making content, let's do it for YouTube, or let's do it for professional release on Prime. And really now they're becoming the same, even more so. Even more so than in the beginning. So we've just been, making the type of content that we want to see out there and things that we feel passionate about. We did do a small short during the pandemic that was kind of a way of getting through that after No Fear, that was called Voices of Normandy. And that was an animated project that Adam and I worked on together, taking, real veterans' voices and animating their experiences and just trying to, and we did that because that was something we really wanted to do. So we always lead with, that's something we really want to do, not let's create content. And that's how the things developed in between features. We just keep doing what we care about.
Yeah, no, I think we just really wanted to, keep our weapons sharp, hone in our skills, try to stay busy as much as we can. Especially since COVID, the industry took a lot of big hit, and a lot of independent filmmakers, probably don't have the resources or opportunities that they had once prior to it. So just staying hungry, try to stay, sharp with it was really the name of the game.
And I'm going to throw out this next question. This is just me sort of spitballing ideas for my own film career, but I'd be curious to get your take on it. One thing that's occurred to me is this whole idea of a 90-minute feature or 100-minute feature. It really came about in the theater era. And maybe you could even say, okay, the VHS, you rent a VHS tape, you have this feature film. It's occurred to me that these streaming services, there's really nothing tying you to an hour and 20 minutes or 90 minutes or a feature film. I mean, whether it be 55 minutes or 65, that would definitely reduce the production costs. And one of the ways nowadays these places have, they pay you, like Amazon, they pay you by each second that someone watches it. So it seems to me you'd be better off having a 40-minute short that was compelling and got everybody from second one to the final second. You might make more money off of that. Plus your production costs would be a lot less than doing like a 90-minute feature film. Have you guys experimented with that at all? Have you put any of these short films onto some of these digital platforms? And are you seeing any kind of a return? Is there a return that's somewhat similar to these features?
You know what it is? There's a lot of still that gatekeeping that goes on with some of the distributors, where it's like, we've had conversations with, people that are in the know, or maybe not as in the know as they say they are, which is just the reality. Where they talk about, okay, well, if it's not over 82 minutes, but it seems like every time we have that conversation, it goes lower. Like it used to be, well, if it's not over 95, you guys, no way. Now it's 82. So what's it going to be next year? You know what I mean? So there's some of that where I don't think that matters as much. A short that's compelling could definitely work. And places like Film Hub, which we've been working with now, who are really interesting, they kind of take like any length of thing as long as it's quality, and then they leave it up to the platforms to decide, which I think is an awesome sort of democratized way of doing film distribution, where filmmakers are a little bit more in control of it. So yeah, those things can work, and there's a different audience for everything nowadays. Yeah, I think, so.
Well, definitely. I think the audience, I don't think they really want something that's too long. 2.5 hours.
It's a long time.
Is a long time. I mean, unless you're really watching like an action thriller movie that's gonna keep you in the pocket for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Your audience will feel it eventually. What might be a good moment, which might feel like 2 minutes, might take 10 minutes, but in the reality, if you don't have them, engaged, that 2 minutes will feel like a half hour. And Jameson's right. I remember way back we were talking to some people, and they were like, "Look, the movie has to be a little bit longer. It just needs to be longer. It's not, this and that." And then we're really pushing it. And I said, Jameson, well, if they're saying that they want this movie and it needs to be 5-10 more minutes longer, do they even like the movie? Like, if that's going to be the deal breaker, and say, "Oh, you guys got to make it 5-10 minutes longer. We like it if it's 5-10 minutes longer." It's like, really? What about the other like 80-70 minutes that are in it?
Yeah.
I mean, so really, I think it's, make it the length that you want to. It's your story, it's your creativity, and I think sometimes they put their hands, too much into the pot with the all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, we've come up with a good process of making shorts and making a feature, and it's all about really it comes down to budget, comes down to the story, and what you could do with it. I think there is a little bit of a plus one, well, not really a plus one, but I think there is a benefit to doing a project that is a small budget and kind of like a short time, because you could see a lot of return from that as well.
Yeah, there's different venues for it. Sometimes things are just about like getting your name out there when you're really just starting. And then other times it's like, we're creating content for our YouTube channel, which does have subscribers, legitimately does get viewership. I mean, we have stuff that we've done in 2 minutes that has gotten maybe more viewership than like our first feature back in the day, until that started catching up. So it just depends. YouTube is such a great place, and people, and we even were just talking to another person on the press tour for How Dark They Pray, and they were saying, YouTube is right there on the streaming platforms. Now it's become television as well, and it's right there by HBO. It's YouTube TV. So our content being on there seems just as relevant, and it's what we watch all day. Then, sometimes even more so than something like HBO. Just depends. So everything has its own audience and venue, I guess.
Yeah. Have you experimented with like the really short form? That seems like a big push with YouTube Shorts, obviously TikTok. Have you guys experimented in that realm at all?
Like the really small, like 30-second
Yeah,
type of
1 minute, yeah, 2 minute type shorts.
actually in our own way, yeah. Like we haven't done we haven't created stuff specifically for that, but we've used marketing channels through that. So we marketed our film Sunset, remarketed our film Sunset in the last I think it was about 6 months ago or something, and we used it as a short, as a reel on Instagram, and it got like 2,000 views in like I don't know 4 hours. It was like ridiculous, and a lot more people. We saw a huge uptick in people watching it. I mean, the return for that quarter was great. So those types of things are really viable in terms of just marketing, which is kind of, what our channel is about too, is marketing the products that are out there, and then also creating more stuff to create more interest in the stuff that we can market in the future. So it all feeds in.
Gotcha. So let's dig into your latest feature film, How Dark They Pray. Maybe to start out and give us a quick pitch or log line. What is this film all about?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to get it right. It's four dark tales about man and the unknown, and it deals with a lot of different elements of the things that we really love about horror. Whether it's slasher movies or it's B monster movies, or we could say Lovecraft, or even homage to things like the original Twilight Zone and to Psycho. So it has a little bit of everything we love, and we really did it as a passion project, still sort of coming out of this pandemic time with a lot of people who were really passionate about doing it with us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I this goes back to just as you're talking about that, it's basically short films, correct, into a feature. And again, this is another thought that has occurred to me is, it would be like maybe not American Horror Story, but there are those sort of horror stories that are not necessarily a connected season. Did you consider that? Like, what would have happened? I wonder if you'd release this as like a series and just made it 4 episodes instead of one feature with 4 episodes all packed in. Was that something you occurred with the distributors? Would they be down on that?
Well, it's a good thing to think about because there's a lot to that. Like we come out of the realm of really loving like traditional genre films. I feel like that's kind of a through line for us now, especially, even though we've made dramas and stuff like that. So we really like anthology horror films as well. So it was sort of designed in a way to be like, I'm thinking of some of the classics, like I guess Body Bags, but also we talked about your favorite. I'm blanking on it right now. Creepshow, one of your favorites. Yeah. And so we were talking about how that could sort of fit into a film experience and connecting them and stuff like that. So we never really think that much about, I don't think at least, about like episodes or shows like that. Because I feel like we're always kind of thinking about films.
Yeah. I mean, some ways, if anything, Jameson watches a lot more series than I do.
It's true.
I am like, there's maybe a handful of series that I would watch. X-Files, Hannibal
was excellent.
Stuff like that. But usually I'm very anti series for some reason. I don't like waiting. I don't like when you get to the end and then something happens and then you got to wait the next week or whatever for it to happen. And then you're disappointed with the whole episode. And then you're wondering where the series is going.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I don't have the patience.
That's interesting. So let's dig into this and talk about your writing process on this one. So you've got 4 distinct stories. Did you guys write them all together? And maybe just describe that process a little bit. Where did the stories come from? And then what did the writing process look like getting these 4 stories on paper?
Well, I'll say this stemmed really from I'm saying really too much. This stemmed from a great idea that Adam had, which was Blood Beach. And we were looking at Blood Beach, and it seemed so specifically perfect for a short form. But because we're kind of in the realm of making features, and we do love making shorts, it was like, wow, this is so good and so interesting to me that I almost want to like put this with something else in a feature film format, but without developing that, because Lovecraft is really hard, and you want to just imply sometimes rather than go further into.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved Blood Beach so much from his idea that it had me thinking about a concept that we had, which was Harrowing, which was the war story, which we had 2 years prior and had written as a feature, as a modern feature. And that was not in World War II as a war story. And I kind of wanted to really still do his concept for that. justice, because I felt like maybe in the writing of it, it didn't come through as well as he really explained it to me and what got me excited. We saw an episode of Twilight Zone, Six Characters in Search of an Exit, via Rob Zombie. So thanks to him. But it was that also kind of spurred that into something. He said World War II and a Nazi. So we did that. And then also just as an overview, and I guess you could talk more about the details, but then I thought of maybe doing an alien found footage because we were watching a lot of Project Blue Book and it was an awesome series and I wanted to really see more of that. And we had never really seen that much found footage alien concept brought together ever, maybe. So, or maybe just once, the fourth kind or something. Yeah, that's the only, but that's like one of our favorites in a lot of ways. Such a crazy movie. And then Nellie came to me because of my father. My father thought it would be an interesting idea to do an homage to those black and white pictures like Psycho, and then it kind of became Psycho. And yeah, that's kind of the overview of everything.
Well, how does that actually transpire in terms of the actual writing? You have these ideas. Do you guys sit in the same room? Do you divide up scenes? What does it actually look like putting these things onto paper?
Yeah, well, especially for like Harrowing, we developed the full script, and so we kind of sat down and said, what was the meat and potatoes of the story?
Yeah,
and it really was just the themes of the overall anthology was that it's about people's convictions. It's about how far they will go to in their beliefs to get what they want or to attain some knowledge. And we just wanted to keep it really bare bones with the stories. And Herring was already like that. I believe when I came to Jamison about the story, it was pretty much the short story, but we fleshed it out into a full feature, and then we brought it back down.
Yeah.
So, and we were good with that because we were able to do that with Sunset prior, taking a story and developing it and then bringing it back down.
Yeah. In terms of Blood Beach, he actually had the entire story figured out. And when he asked me to look at it, I liked exactly what it was. And then in various ways, we just kind of guided it and developed it into being like, okay, this is like the ultimate, I'll say like Lovecraft version of a story that we feel we should do right now. Right. So yeah, but he really had like that story. And then Encounter Nightly, I think was, I think we just thought about it. I remember one, sat down to write it, I guess. But one of the things that Adam also then brought into Encounter Nightly was these great little vignettes and scenes with them interviewing people in the town, which I thought was really fun. And he also directed that film for the first time, which we should get into. And I think he did a great job with it. So it was kind of looking at each one of them, I guess you could say broadly, was like looking at what is the best version of this that we can make.
Yeah.
How do we make the best found footage film that we can make? What is it about found footage that makes it fun? Mm-hmm. Interviewing people, having the host be caught off guard, that type of stuff.
We used our influences, we watched a lot of anthology movies.
Yeah, like Blair Witch 2 was also
Blair Witch, yeah. I mean, VHS, you name it.
Tales of Halloween, I think it's called.
Tales of Halloween.
Is that right? Nightmare Cinema, I thought was interesting. It kind of was like with Mickey Rourke. It's like a super weird movie, but there's elements of it where I was just like, oh wow, you could just do anything in this. Okay. And I thought that was very inspiring.
Yeah. The only additions or the newer ones were Nellie and the intro that we did.
Yeah.
Those were the only things that we kind of said, yeah, the movie is a little too short. We got to beef it up a little bit. And yeah, we just knocked those out of the park, I think.
Yeah, we brought them in. We did them really very easy, straightforward. And yeah, Nellie was interesting because my dad kind of really had the story in his head, which was weird because my dad's very creative and I trust his creativity, but I've never I haven't worked that much with him on stories. But yeah, he told me that and said, but I don't know what to do with this. Maybe make it your own. So that was kind of the process for Nellie. And I wasn't sure if we should put it in there. I thought it was a little too wacky at first. And luckily, because a lot of people really do love that one now, which is great. Adam encouraged it. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
No, yeah. Really Jameson, he brought it to me and he said, what do you think? And I think he kind of was like, it's not going to make it. Because it doesn't really, somehow
it's a lot.
It's a very different from the others. But when I read it, I was just like, what the hell am I reading? This is so funny and it's so good. And I made it a point when Jameson was on set to pretty much not be there. It was only Jameson and our sound woman, Nicole Rakowski, who did the whole sound for the whole thing. And she was great.
Yeah,
She
shout
did
out to Nicole Rakowski because it was a 3-person crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she did an amazing job on all the sound on all the films.
Yeah.
So,
and so here Jameson is in this basement with all these chains and chainsaws with these two women, and I'm like, you know what? It's all gonna go fine.
yeah.
And it was great. They knocked it out of the park. Alicia Spielman was great.
Yeah.
David
Johnson was excellent.
I mean, it was a lot of fun, and it was just something different and, you know, a little kooky.
Yeah, and I was glad he encouraged it. And a lot of people who are really like, I mean, we could say like genre sites, you know, people like Macabre Daily and weird, crazy sites like that who are like just committed to horror films 24/7, which is awesome. They seem to really have picked up on Nelly and a lot of the other ones. A lot of people really like Blood Beach. And then there are like reverse coin where they like, you know, the war story the most, you know, or whatever. And then I personally, I like Encounter Nightly the most. I just think it's great. I think he did a great job directing it. I like the two guys. And a lot of people ask us, well, is it okay if people like one more than the other? And we always think the answer is yes. You know, they're all different. So
Gotcha. Okay, so once you guys had these stories together, what was your next step to actually turning it into a production? Did you go out and raise some money? Is it self-funded? Do you do a Kickstarter? Maybe just talk about that process. You have some scripts. You have the idea of actually going and getting this done. What does those next steps look like?
yeah, well, Adam's a great producer, so he always does a great job trying to figure out, you know, basically what we need and what we don't need, which I think is important. I'm also, I guess you could say I'm sort of the kind of director, at least for my films, where I don't really need to push for that much more. I really try to focus on actors and things like that. So we kind of built a very small budget. I won't tell you what it is, but it's super micro. We won't say. But basically, we made it very rudimentary. Like, this is what this film needs. This is what that film needs. This is what that film needs. And I think the only one that started to creep out of its own budget, like it was The Blob, was the war story, because we started needing period costumes, and we knew that going in, but to really get like accurate Nazi uniform was very difficult, and so we had to go to the UK. We had to go to different places, have them shipped.
That took about the whole time of the production, was just trying to get those costumes ready,
getting them ready,
making sure that, you know, nothing got spilled on them, they weren't ripped or anything. We literally had those costumes in the basement.
Yeah, I mean, financing was amazing on this one, because just to really like simplify that entire conversation, because you can always talk about that for hours, this was the easiest one we've ever done. I mean, we made 2 phone calls and people were like, yep, you did it before, you'll do it again, nice script, let's go. And that was it. And that never really happens. But this one it did. So it let us just focus on doing them. And in terms of approach, I mean, we really just worked on one at a time. Yeah, we scheduled, basically, I'm going to try to say this right, because I feel like we always say this differently. We did one short film a month for one day, for one day. And then we would wait like maybe a month and a half, and then do another short. So we did something like a May, then like a July, and then maybe like an August. And so that's kind of how we did it. And each of them were basically done, I mean, in like record time shot. I mean, Nelly, as a 22-minute movie, was shot in like 7.5 hours, 8 hours.
Wow.
It was nuts. Yeah. So then also like Blood Beach was maybe shot in 6. I mean, 5 hours maybe. The war story was almost the same. And Adams was shot very quickly as well. And again, I think he did a great job with that. The only thing we needed was we had to go back and do a nighttime shoot because he had day and night. So that made him have a day too. But when you looked at the scope of time, it was probably less than 8 hours on all of them to actually shoot, which is really fast. So what is that, like 5 days? I mean, it's like literally pretty much a day.
And it was great. The crew was, well, Nicole was great. Jameson was great. The only thing we had to deal with was really the weather.
Yeah, the weather was a factor.
You know, last half hour, 45 minutes that you need, all of a sudden rain would just come down. You're like, all right.
It was very ominous, and it actually fit the movie in a lot of ways because we were always at like the climax. And the best one for that was Blood Beach because it actually got not sunny and very scary for us, legitimately. But it was also scary because we're like, wow, we have this much more to shoot. How the hell are we going to do this? But we did, and so it worked out. Like I think we ended both the war film and Blood Beach right when it started raining, and that was kind of it for the day. So that was some luck, but also working really fast.
Yeah, I mean, preparation really wasn't a major issue, or it didn't seem like there was a lot of weight on your back to get it done. We really just said, you know what, we're sitting here, let's take our time, let's not break our backs to get this production done. Because, it was, in the time of COVID and, it was very slow. And we said, you know what, why are we breaking our backs to just get something out there that, that might be just thrown aside because of the circumstances in the world or whatever. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to say, you know what, let's not regret anything in this. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we really approached it that way, and we executed it that way. I mean, there was times where we thought we were just on vacation. On Blood Beach, nice. We were just at this nice, quiet little beach, and there was nobody else there. And, Mark Lubbers, who plays Leon, our main character, was just sitting there smoking cigars. Yeah. And it was like, wow, this is a great,
It's kind of like being on like a day trip with a bunch of friends on each one of them, which was nice because the commitment from them was so much there. Like they really wanted to be there. But because we were in these strange, isolated areas during the pandemic, there was something a little otherworldly about it already. So it was relaxing. It was interesting, but you were able to get into the space of that world with those people. And it was both fun and it was very calm, I think, in a lot of ways, even though we moved quickly.
Perfect. I noticed your poster. It sort of is an homage to those like 70s horror films. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit. What was the inspiration for this poster?
Oh, yeah. Well, Adam took a great picture of Alicia when she was there tied up in the basement.
As you would naturally do.
Yeah, that's right. So he took a great picture of her. And we didn't really have we didn't have an on-set photographer or anything going on. So we looked at that picture really hard and we said, that's really great. And we tried to hire someone to do the poster design, and they did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And they gave us sort of the graphic text and things like that. But I think ultimately we wanted to get closer and closer to something that was really simple. So we kind of wound up taking a lot of stuff and trying it, realizing it doesn't work, it's too complicated. And we ultimately wound up with the simplest idea is the best idea. And it also looks the most professional. So it was almost the same process for No Fear, but even more so for this one, right?
Yeah, no, it looked grittier. It looked gritty, something in the style of like maybe Texas Chainsaw, mixed with a little bit of high tension in it, And I don't know. We just took the photo, changed it to black and white, and it looked great in that. And then Jamison, went into his whatever Photoshop, boosted up the red, and it looked creepy. It looked like maybe it was like a real person there who's tied up. It didn't look staged. It looked gritty. You couldn't see a lot of the aspects, the backgrounds. It didn't give too much away.
Yeah, it was just very simple. It's like, when you're doing key art like that, the more complicated you make it look, even if it's like really well executed, it just looks like a mess to your eye. And you don't always think about this way, or maybe you don't notice it because you have a different budget and things like that. But when you look at something that's this big and there's a lot of stuff going on in it, it tends to just not work no matter what you do. Usually it's like the simplicity of key art that tends to work.
Yeah.
And it's very graphic. It's very simple. Maybe it's black, maybe it's white.
Yeah. And also I'm just seeing a little bit of a pattern. If you go on like these streaming services, Tubi, HBO, and you go in the horror section, a lot of the posters look very similar.
Yeah.
Like you'll see the same kind of demonic hand in a couple of movies. You'll be like, man, that's a little too similar. Or, that effect, that zombie effect or that demon effect looks very similar to that poster, And we wanted to, have something that kind of stands out or something you could be like, I don't know what's really going on this. Let me take a better look. just something to go
Yeah.
against the herd, something um with an homage, within
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
just something simple, classic, something
Right.
that's gonna grab your attention to say this could be interesting.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Gritty and simple. I think that sums it up. What have you guys seen recently that you can recommend to our screenwriting audience? Anything you've seen on HBO, Netflix, Hulu that you think is great and maybe could benefit screenwriters?
I really liked 13 Lives.
Oh
13
yeah,
lives.
13 Lives. Yeah.
13 Lives was excellent. I think we both liked that movie a lot.
Yeah.
That's the new movie by Ron Howard. I don't know if you've gotten a
No,
chance
I
to
have
see
not
it,
seen
but
it. Yeah.
out on Prime Video,
Okay.
and it's Viggo Mortensen and Colin Farrell, and it's about the guys who got the kids that got the soccer team that got stuck in that tunnel cave, and Ron Howard directs it, and it does an incredible job with the story because I mean Ron Howard's always good, I guess, but he doesn't put any type of like spin on it, and we're not too much with the press and stuff like what is the political nature of this situation. They're just there trying to get these kids out, and it's an amazingly well done movie. The actors are awesome, and I think it's a great like ticking. It's that ticking time bomb technique, in writing. I think it's done so well there. It's like you have this much time, go. And that's like what this movie's like, without constantly reminding you of the clock, but just instead that these people could die. Great movie.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great recommendation. I'll have to check that one out. How can people see How Dark They Pray? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like on that?
Yes, so right now the movie's available on Prime Video.
Okay.
And it's available right now. It is also on Watch Movies Now on YouTube, which is like a with ads based platform. And it's going to be on many other platforms very, very soon as we go a little wider with it, but definitely Prime Video.
Perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you guys are doing? I know you mentioned Film Valor. You can maybe mention that as your YouTube channel, but anything you're comfortable sharing, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, a blog, we will round up for the show notes.
Yeah, we have the Film Valor YouTube channel. I believe we have an Instagram.
Okay. Film Valor, yep.
Yeah, and Twitter.
Twitter, we're a little bit on, yeah.
Okay.
Like YouTube is like our home.
Gotcha.
Yeah, YouTube is.
And Instagram a bit.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll get that and we'll put that in the show notes. Adam, James, I really appreciate you coming on, talking with me again. Good luck with this film, and look forward to following along. And hopefully you guys can come back and talk about your next film.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes,
thank you. We'll talk to you guys later.
Take care.
Bye. SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer-director Hunter Johnson, who just co-wrote and directed a really contained horror feature film called Sawed Off. It's a really cool concept, sort of Groundhog Day in the woods as a horror film where three people keep killing each other over and over again. He talks about how this film came together for him and how it ultimately got produced. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.